Welcome to the 3 Life Lessons podcast, where I, Rob Hubbard, talk to renowned figures from learning and development to uncover the secrets to their success and find out what makes them tick. Remember to like, subscribe and follow to ensure that you never miss an episode. So my guest here today I first heard about because Tess spoke at an event with you, a learning network event I think it was, and she was so impressed that she told me about you, and so I absolutely had to ask you to be a guest on 3 Life Lessons. So, hence me reaching out. I'm so glad to have you. Now, our guest today is the founder of their own equality, diversity, inclusion and culture consulting firm, and also a seasoned speaker. They bring a ton of lived and corporate experience, and I know there'll be some brilliant life lessons to learn. And I was intrigued to notice on your LinkedIn profile, you describe yourself as an undercover creative. So I'm really interested to see if any of that comes through in your life lessons today. So welcome, Grace Mosuro.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
Yeah.
And shout out to Tess for thinking of me for today's conversation.
Yeah, she said, I was sorry to miss that event, but she said it was absolutely brilliant, and your session especially. So no pressure, obviously, Grace.
No.
Very good. So I think, my first question I'm going to ask. So what are you doing now? And can you tell our audience about the route that you took to get there, please?
So I run a diversity and inclusion consultancy called Aquaintz Consulting, and I set the business up in 2022. And I'll tell you why I set it up in a second, but I'm also a public speaker. So I essentially go around the world now, trying to change the world one organization at a time. So really sharing my lived experience and just what I've learned so far on my journey around diversity and inclusion. Just trying to activate hearts and minds and really change mindsets and give people the courage to lead inclusively in challenging times. I'm also a podcast host as well. So I have a podcast called The Organizational Inclusionist, which is about everything diversity and inclusion. But I started my consultancy for a number of reasons. One of them being that I have had my own challenges as a Black woman in the world of work in the UK, progressing in organisations and navigating kind of different experiences of microaggressions, misunderstanding, lack of cultural awareness and things like that. So they had made my journey a beautiful but challenging one at different points in my career. And then in 2020, Christmas Eve 2020, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that added an additional layer of intersectionality to my identity. There was one conversation in particular that really kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of being what really said, Grace, just you've got to do this. I was having acupuncture with a consultant at the Royal Marsden. Shout out to the Royal Marsden, they're amazing. But the consultant at the time, she was, I had a couple of needles in my head and she was doing the usual bits of small talk to distract me. And she said, what do you do for a living? And I said, at the time I was a partnerships director, and I said, this is what I do, but I feel like this journey that I'm on now with cancer is the kick up the bum that I need to walk into my purpose. And she said, you want to be careful, because now that you've had cancer, it's going to be really difficult to get a job. And I sat there and all I wanted to do was cry. I was like, who says that? But I couldn't cry and I couldn't move because the needles would have shifted. So I was like, but I sat there for the next kind of 10 minutes or so, really just convicting myself that, she's not necessarily wrong. And I don't want anyone else to ever have to worry about disclosing any part of themselves to an organisation for fear of being discriminated against or not being considered. So I started the consultancy. In terms of my journey, so I started my career in recruitment at Michael Page. So I established the junior retail desk at Michael Page, and it was phenomenal. But my life flashed before my eyes in the space of 13 months. Just the hours were crazy. I didn't see my boyfriend, didn't see my family. So But one of the things that really stood out is that in every one-to-one, I kept getting told off by my line manager, who said, "These people are not your friends, just get them into jobs." And I was like, "But I want to make sure that they're happy in the jobs they're going to, and I want it to be right." And he's like, "Grace, just get them into
Send the
jobs."
money.
Yeah, so I really started to see that actually I genuinely cared about people, and I genuinely wanted to help people as well. So I moved into welfare to work, and I worked with a number of organisations in that space, supporting disadvantaged people into work. So I worked with the likes of Read in Partnership, Avanta, Working Links, etc., and did that for a number of years. Then started to manage people that did that work. So managed consultants across London and the east of England to support disadvantaged people into work. And when I moved into management, I started to see again how much I was enjoying helping people. So helping the people that I was responsible for progress in their careers and achieve their own goals. And it was phenomenal. And then I joined Serco for a little while and helped them to win a welfare to work bid for the DWP, and a number of smaller bids as well with the with ESF and the Skills Funding Agency. It was fantastic, but there wasn't as much of the impact that I wanted to have on people's lives. So I joined a startup as a leadership coach, and it was phenomenal. And essentially that role really allowed me to work one-on-one with leaders across a range of sectors, to support them to progress in their careers, but also to navigate the workplace as it stood and really identify, what they wanted out of everything. So that was phenomenal. But one thing that really stood out for me is that the majority of the leaders that I was supporting didn't look like me. None of them did, actually. And it really just emphasized that there was a lack of understanding around how to attract and also encourage people from the global majority to go on to these programs, and how to really assess in a way that was inclusive. So when George Floyd was murdered, it gave me the opportunity to start to support organisations around the diversity and inclusion piece, and to, really just advise them and set up systems that enabled them to select people for the programs more inclusively, and also establish my organisation's ED&I task force, really helping us for the first time to look at race. Yeah, I was going to say to look at race in a new way, but literally to look at race. It wasn't something that was ever done. Conversations didn't take place. So that was really my first kind of step into diversity and inclusion. And then when I had breast cancer, that was kind of the clincher to say, I need to be doing this full time. So here I am. That's a really long story.
It's interesting though. Yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, you found your purpose, haven't you? I mean, a lot of people never get to that point, and with all the the challenges that you've had and battling cancer, but you've come out with this clear purpose, and you're embodying that purpose. So I think that's you should take that as a massive win.
No, I do. I don't take it for granted at all, but thank you.
Yeah, very good. And of course, diversity is strength. We only have to look at nature to understand that. When you look at the forests we have here in the UK, a lot of them are monocultures. There's one type of tree that's been artificially planted, and if a disease comes through, it wipes the entire forest out. There isn't a diversity of life under the canopy. Quite often the stuff you're walking through on the ground is dead, and really what forest should be like is full of all kinds of different plants and animals and species living together. And if some kind of disease comes through, it might impact a small amount of that forest, but the rest of it is healthy. It survives and it thrives. And I think that's a brilliant model for business. And we know from our work in innovation and creativity, diversity of thought is absolutely critical. It's really important that you get different perspectives. It brings so much value to so many areas. Yeah,
definitely.
wonderful.
And I think it's so important to have that, because I think sometimes people think, organizations that aren't particularly diverse do this almost crisis recruitment or, crisis kind of advice searching in times where innovation is needed. But if you have that talent in your organization, then you've got that resource available all the time. And I just think it's just so important, especially now. I think now more than ever, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also, you in your alluded to you being a kind of stealth creative. I'm a stealth brown man, so I look like a white man with a suntan. I'm not. I'm actually a brown man. So I'm half Trinidadian. Lots of my
Oh my
family are brown.
gosh.
Yeah, my mum's from Trinidad. My brother and sister are fully brown, and yeah, huge numbers of family out there.
Oh
Um,
my
but yeah,
gosh.
unfortunately, I came out looking like a white guy with a suntan, which is annoying. A
You know
constant
what is so
frustration to
funny?
me.
I went to sixth form with these two brothers, and
Mm,
they're both mixed race. I think their mum was
mm,
black and their dad was white. But
yeah,
Craig looked like a white man, and his
yeah.
brother looked like a black man, and it
Wow,
was amazing.
that is
I didn't even know that
absolutely,
was possible until I met those two.
yeah. People love it because, like, Tess is white, as you know, and our boys are, they're very white. The older boy is blonde hair, blue eyes, and all of this. And my brother, his son that he had with a lady whose family is Jamaican, and
Mm.
Nathan he's dark skinned, he's properly black, and the two
Mm.
of them are cousins. The three of them are, and it
It's
blows
confusing,
people's
right?
minds. We
And
love
that's the
it.
thing as well. My daughter's fully black, and she's got her
Mm,
cousin is his mum is English, white English, and
mm.
his dad is Nigerian, black Nigerian. And so
Ah,
when she's out with her cousin, people are really confused as well because he looks really
yeah,
mixed race and he's really
yeah.
fair. And she's like, "No, that's my cousin. That's my cousin."
Yeah,
It's brilliant. And she obviously calls his mum auntie. So she's
yeah,
with them. They're like, "How's that your auntie? That's a white woman." She's like, "It's my auntie."
yeah.
That's what I
Genetics
love
are
about this
brilliant.
world.
Yeah,
Families are so diverse now. And it's just beautiful.
yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. Great. Well, let's move on to your first life lesson, Grace. So, what would you like to share with the audience?
So my first life lesson is that life oh my gosh, it's an interesting one. So not everyone needs to know your business, right? I think that's a really important
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I grew up, I grew up in a very Nigerian household, and the messaging is always, you do not tell people what happens in this house. So anything in this
Okay.
house is nobody else's business. And I
Yeah.
grew up with that, and I really stuck to it because I was deathly afraid of my mum, right? Um, but then when I got divorced, I realized
Mm,
actually that there were some of the things that were happening in my relationship, and there wasn't any domestic violence or anything like
mm.
that. But if I had had other married couples that I spoke to about my marriage, there is a chance that I'd still be married. But because of the way that I
Ah.
was brought up, I elected not to tell anyone
Mm,
until it was too late.
mm.
And so one thing that I have learned is that there's a balance to it, right? My mum was I think my mum overdid it. I don't think that there
Mm.
is this thing of, you shouldn't talk about what you're going through. But I do think that you need to be mindful of who you share that with, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, not everyone has your best interest at heart. So that's what I
Yeah.
mean by not everyone needs to know your business. But I do very, very much encourage, speaking as a divorcee with
Mm.
a beautiful daughter who unfortunately has to go back and forth between two homes.
Uh-huh.
I've definitely learned that it's important to have a circle of people that you trust, that you
Yeah.
can speak to and share your experiences with and get advice from, but just be really selective about who they are. So
Mm.
don't just tell randoms, but
Yeah.
definitely have a circle of people that you trust and that you can bounce ideas off. But I went to an event recently, and the speaker said, don't ask anyone for advice.
Mm.
Um, and that also really resonated with me, because I think there is something around, you can talk about what you're going through, but the ultimate
Mm.
decision as to what you do should be yours.
Yeah.
And really having that faith in your gut and your intuition is really, really important, because people that love you may give you advice that is based
Mm.
on their own fear as opposed to what's best for you. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that really stood out as well. So sharing, what you're experiencing and hearing from other people, but still being the one that really drives your own life and makes
Mm.
those decisions for yourself, I think is so, so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Having that support network is getting the right advice. I mean, something I've had great success with is speaking to professionals. When I've struggled, had mental health problems, and I've needed to speak to somebody, I've gone to speak to somebody, and I've found that really valuable, because whilst I've always been very good at talking to friends, I've always had friends have always been really important to me. However, a friend, they just want you to feel better as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So quite often they would give me advice, which was it was just there to make, or they'd say the things to make me feel better. Whereas going to see a professional, they can give you a perspective that friends would struggle to do, and with all of their experience of dealing with many people with similar kinds of problems, they can get you. You may not feel better immediately, and quite often you feel worse, but overall it helps you get the right perspective on things. So yeah, I've certainly had a benefit from that, but
Absolutely.
equally talking to friends as well. Yeah.
No, I think you've said a really valuable thing actually. I'm obsessed with counseling. I've not been in a while,
Mm.
but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I've not been in a while, but I absolutely love it. So
Mm.
I've probably I feel like I've been in counseling probably for the last, when did I get divorced? Yeah, probably the last 10 years on and off.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with it. I think it just helps you to reason in a way that you maybe don't get to do when you're in the thick of things.
Yeah.
And it gives you the tools that you need to just handle life and its ups and downs as it happens, which I think is so
Yeah.
powerful.
The way I view it now is if I get a sports injury, I go and see a doctor, I go and see a physio, I get expert advice, and people tell me
Exactly.
what to do, and how to look after myself, and how to heal. And it's the same thing with mental health, exactly the same thing. So
Yeah,
yeah, super helpful.
definitely.
Yeah, great. So what about life lesson number 2, Grace?
So life lesson number 2 is this one's particularly for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll probably resonate most with women from the global majority, is that
Mm.
you I encourage you to lean into being visible and talking about
Mm.
your success and your achievements,
Yeah.
and also what you want for yourself. Because, my experience and the experience of a number of people that I know who identify as being from the global majority is that
Mm.
they weren't taught to be visible. So what we
Yeah.
were taught was to work really, really hard,
Mm-hmm.
and that our work will speak for itself. And I think
Right.
we all know, anyone that's worked in corporate or is working in corporate knows that that is not true. Your
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
does not speak for itself.
Yeah.
You have to speak for you. And I think people, I definitely went through this. So I made a commitment at May 2024 to be
Mm.
more visible.
Mm.
And that was the scariest decision I've ever made in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was afraid that people wouldn't like me. I was afraid that people wouldn't like what I had to say. I was afraid that
Mm.
I'd be attacked, etc.
Mm.
But one of the things that really convicted me is that I have been through too much not to share. It would actually be
Mm-hmm.
selfish not to share. So I just did it anyway. And I've
Yeah.
been blown away by the number of people that find value in the things that I share. So I'm really
Mm.
visible on my LinkedIn, for example.
Yeah.
I now stand on stages and I'm a public speaker. I've got a podcast.
Mm.
Like, those are all things that took me way outside of my comfort zone, and also my
Mm.
cultural conditioning. But the power of that is that you get being visible. I'm not saying to everyone, go and start a podcast or go and
Mm.
stand on a stage, but talking about your achievements and your successes in your team meetings, in your one-to-ones, gives
Mm.
you the opportunity to tell your story and your impact and share your impact in a way that no one else will do for you.
Yeah.
There's also something about telling other people what you stand for and what your personal brand is,
Mm.
um, before other people do that for you. I think it's
Uh-huh.
really important that we tell our story, because otherwise someone else will tell it and it might not be an accurate one.
Mm.
So I really, really encourage. So my second life lesson is that if I had been more visible in my career, in terms of actually speaking up about my achievements and successes at the time, rather than
Yeah.
only when I was applying for a promotion, I do think that not only would it have given me more confidence and conviction in believing in kind of who I am and my capability, but it would have made it really difficult to overlook me for opportunities, because
Yeah, yeah.
everyone would have known what I was doing. Whereas the only place that my performance was visible was on the monthly report that went to the manager or the director of the team. And, that report was essentially reviewed and filed, and that was it. So I would just encourage everyone to lean into being visible and claiming your personal brand and your narrative, and stating that clearly so that other people don't do that for you.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. That's a brilliant lesson. I mean, I think we've all, in our professional capacities, have come across people who have kind of progressed through an organisation because they are exceptionally good at blowing their own trumpets and playing the political game and doing all of
Absolutely.
that, and actually way beyond their capabilities compared to others. And very often you'll come across people who are incredibly good at their roles and just absolutely amazing, but they're the quiet kind of introverted kinds, and there's this sort of disparity between the visibility of them. Bit of a tangent actually, but this is one of my concerns with sort of matrixed organisations, where the way they work is you kind of swarm around a project. A group will be formed around a project because word will go out about it. You get together, you do the work, and then you disband. So the idea is a matrixed organisation never has to restructure ever again, because its entire organisation is a continual restructure. And that's great for the people who are really good at speaking up and making connections and networking and putting their best foot forward. But it's those people who are the quiet, reflective ones that, my area is design, very often those are the most insightful people when we're doing user research, encouraging them, as you do, to speak up about what you can do and about what you know and your capabilities. I think that is excellent advice.
Thank you. No, absolutely. One of the things that I talk a lot about as well is the impact that culture has on the way that we show up in the world of work. And that, when I was progressing in my career, my culture taught me that I don't share ideas unless someone asks me for my view, essentially.
Right.
So I would sit in meetings quiet until I was asked a question. Whereas I would sit in meetings with people who would often just speak for the sake of speaking, or would speak straight after somebody else had and say exactly what that person said, but using different words. And I never saw any value in that. And I'm still dead against that. But what that really emphasized to me is that people misunderstood my culture for a lack of confidence. And that's one of the things that I really kind of try and get across to organizations and to leaders now, is that, do you understand the cultural makeup of your team? Because what you're confusing as a lack of confidence or a lack of leadership skills could just be that somebody's culture, and you need to really understand how you better get what you need to get out of them, or how you better communicate with them to really understand how to get the best from those people. So yes, all very interesting.
Yeah, that is brilliant. So we're on to the third and final life lesson. What's the last one that you'd like to share?
So the last one I will share is a personal one. So I mentioned that I had breast cancer. And I genuinely believe that I had breast cancer because I was the last priority. I wasn't even a priority in my own life, right? So I prioritized my family, my daughter, obviously, and kind of being the best daughter I could be to my parents, being the best big sister. And what that meant is that I lost my voice, and I lost any interest in looking after myself and filling my cup. And I genuinely believe that my breast cancer was a result of stress and a lack of self-care, essentially. So my third life lesson is that in order for me to be, and in order for any of us to be the best that we can be, and to be those support systems for other people, it's really important that we fill our own cup. And I think I might have stole this from Oprah, but I do not give of myself to anyone unless I feel like I'm giving from an excess, right? So
Yeah.
I fill my cup to overflow, essentially. I do things that I love to do every single day. I try and fill my day with one thing that makes me joyful. I try to make time for self-care in my month so that I constantly feel like I am radiating abundance in terms of energy and mindset, etc. And when I am in that place, then I am able to give from that overflow without ever being at a deficit, without ever feeling drained, without ever feeling resentful.
Yeah.
If I am not in overflow, then I am unable to give. And I think it's really important that we get comfortable with the fact that actually in being selfish, sometimes we are being the most selfless we can be for the people that we love, because human beings, despite the best will in the world, we are takers. So if people continue to give, we will just continue to take. There are very few people that will tell you stop, like, that's plenty. They will just continue to take. So it's really important that we own the responsibility of actually setting our boundaries, making time for looking after ourselves and putting ourselves first. My daughter is fully aware that even though I love the bones off of that girl, I am my number one priority. She is my second priority. And in putting myself as the first priority, I'm able to do and be everything that she needs me to be, because I am always looking after myself. Because if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So that is my third life lesson. I would encourage people to prioritize self-care, filling your cup to excess before giving to other people, and being okay with setting boundaries and sticking to them. Because I can't remember the exact phrase, but essentially our body pays the toll for us not doing that. And I'm without a doubt testament to that, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah. It's that thing on the aeroplane, isn't it? You know, if the mask descends, put yours on first, put the mask on first, and then look out for other people, because then you're able to. I think that's brilliant advice. There's something I'm trying to be better at the moment, is self-care, being a bit kinder to myself and not just being like work. And it's difficult when you're into your work, when you enjoy it, you know, and it's easy to miss that actually, it's really stressful actually. And it's really tiring, and I've kind of not noticed, because a lot of what I do, I enjoy it. Not all of it, you know, some of it sucks, but a lot of it I really enjoy, and I sort of, you know, I feel energized by it. But you do have to check in with yourself, don't you, and think about your energy levels, and take breaks, and, you know, meditate, or be mindful, or take a walk, or, you know, do the things that care for you. Book a holiday.
People. I like to, even though I've not done it in a while, so this is also a point to me, but there are loads of cheap holidays that you can book well in advance, but then you spend your entire year really excited about this holiday that's coming up, and you could book a few of them. You could even be unreasonable and book one a quarter. Why not?
Yes.
But I just, listen, give yourself things to look forward to, so that everything that you're doing, you know that you have already planned a reward in for yourself. Yeah,
that is great advice. Straight after this, I'm booking a holiday. Absolutely.
Yes. Send me a message and let me know where you're going. I'm excited for you already.
Yeah, absolutely. Squeeze another one in.
Yeah. Love
well,
it.
Grace, that was brilliant. You lived up to the glowing review that you got from Tess. I'm so delighted to have had you for a guest today. You've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you so much, Rob.
If you've enjoyed learning those 3 life lessons, then make sure that you like, subscribe and follow, so that you never miss an episode.